Have you ever heard any rumors on these guys? Chris Cornell of the band Soundgarden and Chester Bennington of Linkin Park. Do you know anything about them? Have you heard anything in the conspiracy or the rumor mill? Because if you haven't, well, hang on to your seats. It's about to be a wild ride. Let's first look at what the mainstream tells us about these two people. And I'm not even going to put it on here because I'm trying to avoid censorship. But what it says about these two individuals is that they both took their own lives in a similar manner, in fact, if you get my drift. Rhymes with schmanging, they schmung theirself. Let's just pretend for a minute that that story isn't true and move on to the second story about them, which is about them being involved with a certain documentary. And well, a lot of people think that because of their involvement in that documentary that maybe they didn't schming themselves. Maybe they were taken out. But I'm going to ask you for a second not to believe that one either and just look at what I have to show you. Let's start with Chris Cornell right here. And if you didn't notice, this picture is actually split in two. And this is Chris Cornell, and this is Jonathan Rumi, the guy who plays Jesus in The Chosen. Notice how similar their faces are and how easily it splits. And yeah, they have different color eyes, but there's something very familiar about both sides of that picture. Now, I'll show you something else real fast. When Jonathan doesn't know how to use the filter and he does a zoom in on his teeth. Here it is, ready? He doesn't know what he's doing and accidentally does this filter where we get a nice close-up of those pearly whites. Now, I just couldn't help but notice how Chris Cornell's teeth looked so much like Jonathan's. So much so that you can't even really tell those are different mouths, if you get my drift. And then on the other side, I couldn't help but notice how much Chester Bennington resembled Spider-Man, aka Tom Holland. When you go in between the two of them, you hardly notice there's a different person there, except for that little flap of skin on the nose. I mean, there's one, and then there's the other. It's almost like it's the same person. And while not as good as dental records, I couldn't help but notice these similar markings on their faces. And not just those big ones, but these two small ones. And these two small ones. But you know what else is also very similar? Their little eyebrows that just flare up in the same exact spot. Right there. How interesting that is. It's almost like they're the same person. Eyebrow and eyebrow. And you know what's funny about that is I always thought that they picked Zendaya for the new Spider-Mans because of the whole woke agenda, but I think it's something else. Zendaya and Tom Holland, and Chester and his wife. Tom and Zendaya, Chester and his wife. And hey, they sure like those black and white colors up there. It's almost like they're celebrating duality. I mean, look at those two mugs, people. Come on. Zendaya and Chester Bennington's wife. But you know the really fun part, other than them not being able to help themselves when they told us that Chester Bennington got bit by a poisonous spider. No, the really fun part is that these two butt buddies, I mean friends, liked each other so much that I just knew they couldn't help but team up again. And guess what's coming? Can you guess? Can you guess what's coming? Especially with the new Spider-Man movie coming out soon. Did you guess it? Breaking news, Jonathan Rumi has officially been cast in the new Avengers movie, Doomsday, that just happens to have Tom Holland, aka Spider-Man, in it. What a terrific, amazing coincidence that these two people which are the same. There's Chris and there's Jonathan, and these two people who aren't different, they're the same as Chester and Tom. And those two people just happen to be getting together again in a movie. How wonderful. An amazing coincidence. Those coincidences just make my heart warm that there's so many coincidences in the world and it's not them at all. Just mocking the living you know what out of us. But of course, all this for entertainment purposes. I'm sure that they both schmeng themselves and they're not really around in roles where people just love and adore and worship them. Yes, even as Spider-Man, especially little kids. And yes, even as Jesus, even though it's a fake Jesus, still people worship him, which is the point of all of it, to hide God and to make you worship all of them. Either fallen angels or the fallen angels' little minions, whichever they are. Entertainment only, of course, though.